The Bitcoin bulls are back. A growing number of people and companies are putting their trust in currencies that aren't controlled by the central banks of the world, and they've collectively driven up prices of Bitcoin by 74% to record levels.
Companies, as we all know, they are all of a sudden, many of them are flush with cash and they're trying to find things to do with that.
Although this is the first time Bitcoin has risen above $51,000, it has shot up sharply before, only to come crashing down. But some analysts say this time is different.
One thing I would say that's changed maybe over the course of the last 6 to 12 months is that with more high profile names getting behind it, with companies putting their financial power behind it, then all of a sudden the risk of it completely bursting and falling effectively to zero, which I don't think it was necessarily going to do, but the risk of this massive implosion has probably been reduced because of the power that now exists behind it.
Major financial institutions including BNY Mellon, Morgan Stanley and MasterCard have shown interest in Bitcoin. Tesla has invested $1.5 billion in the cryptocurrency, driving its current price rally, and the electric car maker plans to let customers pay in Bitcoin soon. It will be joining a growing number of retailers including Starbucks, Whole Foods and Nordstrom department stores that already accept payments in Bitcoin. Yet these companies represent a very small segment of the retail market.
It's still not clear how these companies and many others will view Bitcoin's position. Not every company is Tesla, and not every CEO is Elon Musk.
Even the most ardent supporters of these alternative currencies say their meteoric rise needs to cool off.
I think over the long term, it will definitely increase because the Bitcoin's rate of inflation, it is decreasing, and people lose Bitcoin all the time, and people have wallets that they cannot recover, and that there's a very small number of Bitcoin left to be mined, and it's becoming scarcer and scarcer. But I think short term, we are in for a lot of volatility.
And if the price history of Bitcoin is any guide, investors looking to make large gains could be in the bullpen for a while. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
For more on this, let's go to Danielle Bianchi, who joins us from London. He's Associate Professor of Economics and Finance at Queen Mary University of London, who's been keeping a close eye on digital assets. Welcome back to the program, Danielle. Now, it's really hard to fathom, isn't it, that just less than a year ago in March, Bitcoin was worth around $3,800. It's now surpassed $51,000. Can you tell us more about what's behind the rally that we're seeing now and whether or not you think it's sustainable?
Thanks for having me, first of all. I think what is new now is the main interest from the corporate sector. Big CEOs from big institutions such as Tesla, for instance, are basically, backing Bitcoin like they never did before. So there is a new, fresh interest, not only from financial players, but also from more traditional corporate sector, if you wish, and that basically drives up demand because increase the hypes, increase the public interest, and given Bitcoin is scarce by definition, prices go up. Now, how much is sustainable, the rally? That's the $1 million question at the end. Definitely, there could be some short-term retracement, if you wish, but we have to keep in mind that the volatility, despite being very large, is about a half of what was in 2017. So it's a highly volatile asset, still a volatile asset, but it's becoming less and less volatile. So the price run up that we're seeing now is nothing compared to what was in 2017. It's much less volatile, much more structured. Many big players are backing Bitcoin like they never did before. So all of these things should be considered when we think about how Bitcoin will evolve in the short term. Definitely, there could be price drops. That's the nature of that type of asset. Has always been that case. But in the long term, I kind of find hard to believe that there will be massive drop in prices.
What about this idea that the Bitcoin rally that we're seeing right now is a result of speculative betting on financial markets that are currently awash with billions, if not trillions of dollars of stimulus cash because of the pandemic? And the idea that perhaps when this money does run out or get out of the system, that the price of Bitcoin will then fall back to what it should be worth. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I mean, that could be well a possibility. But again, I mean, it's not that, big financial institutions are flawed with cash since yesterday. I mean, the monetary policy has been very accommodating since years now. So if anything, we should have seen the same type of trajectory a couple of years ago. But as you pointed out before, a bit less than a year ago, the price of Bitcoin was a bit more than 30,000 US dollars. So I don't think that's the main driver. As I said, in the short term, definitely there is short-term speculation. It's still too much concentrated market at the end. That's why I suggest retail investors to be extra careful, because there are a few players that are basically have all the firepower at the end, and that's something that should be always considered when we see price fluctuations. But again, if I try to look beyond the short-term speculation, I fail to see. I'm kind of optimistic if I look at the outlook in the medium to long term.
Okay, can you take us back to basics now? Fiat money, or the hard currency that we use day to day, we know where that comes from. It comes from central banks and governments around the world that control its supply. But where does Bitcoin come from? Who's ultimately in control of that?
Well, I mean, it's a super decentralized framework, so nobody is really in control. That's the beauty of it. In a nutshell, Bitcoin has value because people believe that Bitcoin has value. But this is basically the same thing as fiat money at the end. You have to believe that the note of 20 euro actually is valued 20 euros. There is the debasement of the currency. The debasement of fiat currency has been taking place since many years now, and Bitcoin is no different. What I think should be highlighted though regarding Bitcoin is that possibly the main risk is sustainability at the end, because it's becoming more costly, unlike fiat currencies, unlike transactions in credit cards and the likes. So Bitcoin, there is a serious risk of sustainability in the medium to long term. But the ecosystem underlying is working on that and try to make the whole thing cheaper and faster. Maybe not Bitcoin on itself, but spillovers of Bitcoin. So long story short, Bitcoin has value because it's scarce and because investors believe that it has value, and it's just an interaction of supply and demand at the end. Nothing more than that. There is really no fundamental value underneath.
Okay, in the meantime, we'll see how much higher or indeed lower Bitcoin will go. Danielle Bianchi, thank you so much again for joining us on the program.